Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julian Morse. I'm the MLA for Frame Lake and chair of this committee. This public briefing is being live streamed on the Assembly's social media channels. And as a reminder, as always, please direct all comments and questions through the chair. Please wait to be recognized and for your mics to be turned on before speaking. This helps keep the meeting running smoothly. So I'll ask members to introduce themselves quickly, starting with Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Danny Rogers. I'm the MLA for Nuvik-Boot Lake, and welcome everyone.
Ms. Reid.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am Kate Reid. I'm the member for Great Slave here in Yellowknife, and thank you for being with us.
Mr. Hawkins.
Hello, everyone. I'm Robert Hawkins, MLA for Yellowknife Center. Always happy to be here, and look forward to this presentation, along with every one of our millions of subscribers on social media. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Jericon online, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Richard Jericon, MLA for Trinity. Merci.
Thank you very much, committee. This afternoon, committee is hearing from Krista Carnogursky, the NWT Ombud and Acting Languages Commissioner, as part of committee's review of the 2024 to 2025 annual reports of Legislative Assembly statutory officers. Thank you very much for joining us, Ms. Carnogursky. I'm going to turn the floor over to you for your opening remarks and your presentation, and then we'll open the floor to questions from MLAs. So the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mr. Chair and the committee for allowing me to present on the work of this office. I'd first like to start by going through the presentation. The Office of the NWT Ombud is an independent office of the Legislative Assembly that speaks up for fairness in territorial government administration and services. We listen to and investigate complaints from people who feel they've been treated unfairly by the territorial authorities. We can also investigate matters on our own initiative without receiving a specific complaint. This year also included the Ombud being appointed as the Acting Language Commissioner of the NWT in January 2025. The appointment was considered when the previous Language Commissioner advised she would not be seeking a reappointment, and after research into how other jurisdictions fill the roles of statutory officers, such as Ombuds and Language Commissioners. Dual appointments can streamline operations as it provides an opportunity to consider two pieces of legislation when attempting to address and resolve a complaint. I expect that if a complaint falls outside the jurisdiction of the Official Languages Act, that I could still address it through the Ombud Act. One of the goals that I set last year was to increase outreach into the regions with the lowest utilization rate. During my first 9 months in this role, I was able to travel to 11 communities and focused on the Beaufort Delta and Sahtu regions. Targeted outreach into the Sahtu region resulted in a 500% increase and included communities where we had not previously received a complaint from. Being present in the communities helps to build trust with residents and allows me to hear and take their complaints from residents who do not want to fill out a complaint online or call our office. Our numbers of complaints continue to grow year over year and have also increased in complexity. This is consistent with other jurisdictions in Canada who have also seen a rise in numbers and complexity of file types. Here are our numbers for the past 3 fiscal years. In 2022-2023, we received 188 inquiries, with 29 moving to the complaint stage. In 2023-2024, our office received 228 inquiries, with 54 progressing to the complaint stage. This past year, we received 266 complaints, with 61 moving to the complaint stage. The average increase in complaints is about 40 additional complaints each year, and our staffing levels within our office has remained 2 since our office opened in 2019. Our mandate includes public education on the role of the Ombud and principles of administrative fairness. In 2024-2025, we continued to offer training to the public servants. We also developed a shorter versions for senior managers, and were able to provide that training to about 130 senior management employees, which included deputy ministers. Educating the public service is equally as important as traveling to communities, as staff within the public service are persons who deal with residents and also hear concerns in person. We connected directly with residents when we traveled to 11 communities and hosted community meetings, during community outreach events such as the Newcomers Welcome event, the Spring Trade Show, the Christmas Craft Sale in Inuvik, and the NWT Association of Communities annual meeting. I was also able to meet and learn from the other ombuds throughout Canada at an annual meeting in Charlottetown. In addition to the 266 inquiries we processed last year and the public outreach and training, we also completed one complaint-based investigation into a concern regarding the safe disclosure process and one own motion investigation into a complaint regarding the long-term care facility in the Sahtu region. We also conducted one systemic early resolution with the Department of Finance. The systemic complaint sought to address confusion in job advertisements and the use of equivalencies when comparing someone's qualifications to a position. The use of the early resolution process before proceeding to an investigation not only builds relationship with departments, provides an opportunity for dialogue and understanding, but it can also reduce the time and scale of work involved compared to a full investigation. It also showcases the internal work of the department and allows for recognition of the important changes to stay within the department. I want to thank the department for their collaboration, as that was the first time we used this mechanism for resolution. We consider investigations complete when we notify the complainant and the authority that we are discontinuing the investigation, or as of the date, we provide the complainant and the authority with a final report. All of the investigations we completed took less than a year. A recommendation made last year was for additional funding to be provided for a new position, a senior early resolution and investigation officer. This position will ensure we have adequate resources to address the increase of complaints, to build capacity and a career pathway within our office, and will allow us to complete additional own motion investigations, as we currently do not have enough capacity to investigate all systemic complaints brought to our attention. Since the establishment of the Ombud in 2019, the number of staff, too, has not changed, despite the increase of complaints, public outreach, and engagement with 33 communities within the NWT. Comparable statutory offices include the Information and Privacy Commissioner Office. In 2020-21, they had 2.5 funded positions. In 2023-2024, they now have 4. Last year, they received 140 complaints. The Human Rights Commission, they currently have 7 full-time positions plus an executive director. Last year, they had 308 inquiries, 26 of which became complaints. The addition of additional position will also provide us the capacity to accept referrals from the Legislative Assembly or standing committees. This is a cost-saving measure for the GNWT that can be utilized in situations where there is a need for independent external investigation. As I look ahead to this fiscal year, 2 areas of focus will be staff development and completing targeted own motion investigations. As I noted, we have seen an increase in the complexity of complaints coming to our office. Complaints require we become experts in the applicable laws, regulations, and policies for each department or agency. Ensuring we make time for staff development will build capacity within our office and reduce potential burnout on our small team. The second area I want to focus on this fiscal year is completing targeted own motion investigations on areas that could have the biggest impact for residents. As of July 1st, 2024, our office began tracking the ethnicity of persons who contact our office. As a territory whose population is about 50% Indigenous, it is important for us to know the demographics of the persons who contact our office. Knowing this information can signify as systemic barriers might be present for Indigenous people, and will provide an opportunity for a broader, deeper look at issues brought forward. I plan to use this data and the trends that we see within our work to choose targeted own motion investigations that we can complete. Again, I want to thanks for the opportunity to present, and I can open it for any questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And first up for round 1 of questions, I have Ms. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you very much for your presentation. Your annual report noted that folks who contact your office are often unsure who to talk to, and you provide referral guidance in this respect. So from the last few years, or I guess not quite yet, of your time in this role, is it something that you would recommend that public bodies would be providing more system navigation or pathfinding for their programs? Because this seems like a bit of a mismatch for your office. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Carnogursky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. It is one that ties into the public education that I think that we provide, and is part of the reason that we provide training directly to the GNWT and departments and public servants, so they have that information, and they can also share that with people that reach out to them about any concerns that they might have about GNWT programs or services. Sometimes folks are unsure who to reach out to in the government, or afraid to ask questions that could potentially feel like they might be not agreeing with their employer. So I think a lot of folks reach out to us because they're unsure if they should ask their supervisor or who they should ask. And sometimes the complaints fall outside our jurisdiction and are about a federal program or a municipality, so we're able to give them information on external bodies that oversee the federal government, or different avenues that they can take if we can't help them with that concern.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Do you have a follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and yeah, thank you for that answer. I feel like in that regard, MLA offices are not too dissimilar from your office. Trying to put people in contact with the right body to help address their needs and for programs and services, and indeed, if it's the federal government, sometimes in that regard. When you are looking into complaints and or assessing if there has been maybe administrative fairness in inquiries that you're receiving, are you on the whole satisfied with how departments and public bodies are engaging with your office? Are they providing timely responses? Are some doing better than others? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Carnogursky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. I'm very impressed with the collaboration and the quick results that we get from the GNWT. The vast majority of complaints that come to us are resolved in the early resolution stage, so before they even have to be brought to my attention for a potential investigation, and they're usually dealt with really quickly. Something that's missing from this annual report that I plan to include next year is timeframes on that to show how efficient the responses that we get, because sometimes they don't even know that a concern seems unfair, so they're really willing to address it as soon as they can.
Thank you. Mr. Hawkins, I have you up next for questions.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. When the Ombud talks about early resolution, would that be treated as a true complaint, or would that be treated as a potential complaint? I'm trying to understand where that fits and is defined. Could we maybe start because my question is built around that, trying to understand what that means. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carnogursky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we categorize them different ways. So if someone's just contacting our office about an inquiry into a policy or a program, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a complaint or something for us to look into. But if someone was complaining about how they were treated on an application or the decision, then we would look into that and ask for more information about that person's file and the steps that were taken or not, and then potentially ask the department questions to clarify that, to either give them a clearer answer or to point out to the department that potentially what they did was not fair and that they should consider changing their program or policy or revisit the decision that they gave to that client.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hawkins for a follow-up?
Yeah, thank you. So I think what would be helpful maybe in the future for people like myself to understand the breakdown of how you define complaints, maybe a bit of a pathway understanding. I mean, you have got some great examples of, and this has been a carry forward. I'd like to credit you with it, but unfortunately I know they were in there before. So your predecessor had them where they explain, this is, they bring forward an issue and this is how it worked out and whatnot. If you could explain maybe in the future, do a breakdown of the process and kind of like the flow chart, the context of defining, because it's difficult to understand. If I hear early resolution, I hear it is a complaint, but then maybe it isn't. Early resolution is just a clarification, which isn't a complaint. And when I see your workload, if I understand it correctly, I think you said you had 51 files, complaints, and that's looks like about 19% of the work, and it's difficult to say how long a file takes in this particular business, which is, I'd be really interested on how you qualify time and energy committed to a particular file in the next report, knowing that back to some challenges are, once you, after a couple phone calls and emails, you realize it's a misunderstanding and a bit of a cleaning up. We'll call that, say, anywhere from an hour to 2 hours opening and closing a file. Whereas in something could take weeks, if not months, to sort out. And so how do you compare the two of them on data? And it's very difficult to say, well, I've had 2 complaints, one took 2 hours, one took 6 months, so, but then they go, well, it was only 2 complaints. So to appreciate the dialogue and how much energy goes into it, I don't envy your position, but I look forward to how you sort of break out that further detail in the future, if that's certainly in the wheelhouse of your area, how you're going to explain and elaborate more. And as far as the position request, you're not the first one, and I expect there'll always be. I would encourage you to plead your case to the Board of Management through the Speaker, obviously, submit and request that and see where it goes. So, but with respect to helping understand files better, I'm not sure that's something you'd be interested in or could do, but I think it'd be most helpful when folks like me hear, oh, there's 51 complaints, but a third of them took 7 minutes, but the 2/3 took months and months, and to get a better sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carnogursky, an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, thank you for that suggestion, and it is something that I've been struggling to quantify or explain to folks about the nature of our work and how much time goes into each complaint. Like, it is hard to define. One complaint could result in a full investigation. You can determine that it sounded simple in the beginning, and then you started to investigate it, and now we're going to do an investigation that could potentially take a year. Where sometimes you can resolve it within a day or two within the department. So that's definitely something I'll take back to my team and work on a way to explain that a bit better for next year.
Okay, thank you. Do we have further questions from committee for round 1? Yeah, and I'm not seeing further, so Mr. Hawkins again.
Sorry, just to build on the last piece, just want to ask, are you seeing or are you reporting nature of departments? Or in other words, let's pick on the Department of Finance just for fun. Are you getting a lot of complaints in a particular department more so, or and to be honest, this should be transparent too, at least in some way it should be communicated. So, people can look at what's going on and whether it's treated public by, we worming down to the exact section or not. I'm not sure what the right fair process is. And for finance listening, I'm not picking on you. But the truth be told is that if we're noticing habitual issues with certain areas and certain things, somehow that needs to be articulated up the ladder, the food chain, whatever way you want to call it, to make sure, well, wait a minute, maybe we've got a whole section that's interpreting something or running something a certain way that really isn't the way it should be or is balanced and fair. And I guess maybe more so is, so I guess it's a 2-part. Are you seeing certain sections or departments or problems? And can you highlight a couple general examples? I don't need a specific one. And how do you communicate that to the upper machinery to say, hey, we're seeing lots of problems in this area. Maybe we should have a conversation. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carnogursky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hawkins, for that question. That is a good question, and part of one of my goals that I want to focus on this year is having targeted own motion investigations and looking at the data that we collect in our office. When you get finance as an example, And the recent one that came up was regarding concerns with equivalencies and the use and how they apply them. So that's when we worked with finance to do the early resolution on that, and now all job posters include equivalencies, so it's clear for folks on how it'll be applied. But that same question is something that came up in another area when I'm trying to decide what would be a targeted own motion investigation. I want to know, so say we have, I don't know the numbers, maybe it's 35 complaints for NTHSSA. But what does that mean? So what's the breakdown of those complaints within NTHSSA? Is there more in a certain department? So within our office, we are breaking down those numbers a bit more. Same with justice. Someone had a good question about that. So next year in our annual report, we're going to have a little bit more breakdown of different areas within the bigger departments, so then we can see the trends. And it can help with my work, but then we're also transparent when we're reporting on the breakdown within the bigger departments.
Okay, thank you. I just had one question myself before we go to round two. You noted in your presentation that there was also an increasing number in outside from NWT complaints. So I noted there was 27 this past year. Can you just help committee better understand how that works? Because my understanding is you're the NWT Ombud. So when you get complaints from the outside, how does that work within your jurisdiction? And can you just help us understand what those are?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that question. It is a good one, and a lot of times some of those complaints are from people that used to live here, and that they might have had a complaint for a department years ago, but they still might not agree with that outcome and want us to look into it again for them, or that's a similar complaint. One of the requirements within the Ombud Act is that you have to be personally impacted by a decision or a process. So sometimes we receive complaints from outside the jurisdiction that are about unfairness about a GNWT policy, but you can't complain about something if it doesn't really impact you. So sometimes some of those complaints from outside jurisdictions are complaints about that.
Not sure if this is something you're comfortable getting into, but I'm curious, like, what's the nature of those complaints generally? Is it just a big mix, or is there something in particular that's been causing issues for people from outside the NWT?
Thanks. Yeah, it is a big mix for sure, and like I said, it usually ties into a past dealing that they had with the GNWT when they used to live here, or them not agreeing with something that was passed that doesn't directly impact them, so they can't, under our jurisdiction, complain because it doesn't impact them, and yeah, they're not living here.
Okay, thank you. For round two, I have Ms. Reed first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Building on Mr. Hawkins' inquiry, when it comes to own motion investigations, your singular recommendation from your report is to add a new position, Senior Early Resolution Investigation Officer. So can you maybe dive a little bit more into the examples of those systemic concerns that would benefit from own motion investigations and an additional staff member? You spoke earlier a little bit about NTHSSA. Would it be to do more of that contextualization work of what areas need to be investigated? And obviously, you know, if you have a two-person staff, it's hard to dig into deeper topics. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Carnogursky?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. Yeah, my vision for this position will allow us to do a lot more digging into those concerns and those trends that we see. Now that we're collecting demographics of the people that contact our office, this is the first year, so we'll start to use that information too, in addition to the information that we have from departments, to try to pick out those systemic potential own motion investigations that we will do. I'll also base it off what I hear whenever I travel. So if I keep hearing the same concern, say about justice or health everywhere I go, then that could signify that we need to look into that area. So that person can help do research and help to prepare for the investigations, because right now the early resolution position that we have focuses on outreach and training. And then our deputy ombud is the one that does the research for potential investigations and starts the investigations. So having that in between will really help to streamline our work or give more capacity so we can look into more of the concerns that we hear, because we can't look into everything that we hear because we have to be prepared to do a full investigation if we look into something, which sometimes can take up to a year.
Thank you. Ms. Reed?
Thank you, and thank you for that explanation. So when it comes to tracking demographics from, I think you said it was July 1st of last year, does that have any implications for your office in terms of if administrative unfairness bordered on issues of human rights violations? Would you then send them to the Human Rights Office? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Carnogursky?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that question. Right now, we're only asking folks additionally to advise if they're Indigenous or non-Indigenous to help identify for systemic barriers. But definitely if folks come to us with a concern that we think could be more suited by human rights or is a human rights complaint and not necessarily an ombud one, we definitely give them the option and tell them that might be the best route to go and kind of give them their choice. A lot of times there could be some ombud, some overlap, but if that's the right route, then we direct them to go to the human rights.
Very quick follow-up.
Thank you, and I'm sorry I should have included this in my question. I guess I'm curious is at the sort of intersection of systemic racism and administrative unfairness is systemic denial of service for whatever reason, and that kind of is a gray area. So I'm wondering if that is something that you would be looking into if you were indeed expanding your ability to do more own motion investigations. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carnogursky?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Yeah, that is an aspect that we look into when we do investigations, is the fairness of that policy being applied to all persons, persons with disability, all the residents, Indigenous people, non-Indigenous people, so that the fairness piece is applied to all. So when we look at the program or service provided by that department, that's one of the aspects that we look into. So the fair decision, a fair policy, and how the person was treated, if all those things were fair, and if there's any recommendations that we can make to improve it, not only for that person, but for everybody. And I hope by completing systemic investigations that it'll result in improvements for everybody. It's likely that systemic barrier also impacts the rest of the population of the NWT.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. And just to follow up on MLA Reed's line of questioning a little, do you see, and I don't know if you can answer this one, do you see kind of trends when you look at, obviously when you're doing an investigation, you're going to look at previous investigations, or do you see trends in any specific, and without getting into too much detail, specific departments, and Mr. Hawkins picked on finance, I'll pick on housing, whereas you see a certain trend coming up regularly, and if so, have there been, do you then see changes to the policy, or do you see it addressed kind of at a systemic level through the policy, through the work you do? I guess from those, potentially, if there are any certain trends or certain ones you see over and over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carnogursky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for that question. Yeah, I guess the example that that's included in our annual report of a trend was we got several complaints about the application of equivalencies, how it was done, if it was done correctly, and that was a trend this year. And so instead of going to a full investigation, one of the mechanisms within our act is that I can try an early resolution with that department and try to do this work without it being a full investigation that takes a lot of time and effort, not only from our office, but for the GNWT and their staff. And we know that that's stressful, and for some it's not a good process to go through. So we were lucky in that They were very willing to make changes and went above some of the recommendations that we made. So that process was a lot quicker than I expected, and with that, you have to be prepared that if that doesn't work, then maybe you have to do an motion, and then we'll still have to do a lot of work. So those are things that we consider, and will, when other trends come up, that's going to be the first route that I try to take with departments and to address concern is through the early resolution, because they're the experts on the work and the policies and how to implement them over us. So it's important for me to hear how they think they can resolve it, instead of me, just coming up with recommendations that I think could work, when we can find ones that will work and that they're willing to implement, and that's done together.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rogers, did you have a follow-up?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe I'll go into another topic, and with the GNWT's recent release of the guidance on generative AI, can you confirm if your department has been involved or participated in the review of the draft guidelines around artificial intelligence?
Thank you.
And any AI complaints, I guess, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Ms. Carnogursky?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. No, our office was not involved in the review of that policy. It is something that, as an office, that I want to review. It recently came up in the annual conference that we have with all the ombuds throughout Canada. We met in Charlottetown, and each office is considering the use of AI and how and if that could work in the ombud world, and what their jurisdictions and provinces are doing. So I do look forward to reviewing theirs and my colleagues across the country as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I haven't seen any further hands up, but does committee have any further questions for the Ombud at this time? Okay, seeing none. I do understand from the Ombud that she was interested in also speaking a bit to the Language Commissioner's report. So we do have a little bit of time if you wanted to speak to your role as acting Language Commissioner, I think is how it's put. Yep. So by all means.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and I know that I did share my presentation, so I'm open to any questions that you may have, but I just want to thank the Legislative Assembly for that appointment, that I do see the Languages Act and the Ombud Act working together, in my ability as the Ombud to address concerns that might fall outside the Languages Act. And in that role, I also plan to do more own motion investigations, because there is the ability within the Official Languages Act to do that as well, to help counter the low number of complaints that this office has historically received.
Okay, thank you. Did members have any questions regarding languages? Mr. Hawkins?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not particularly a question, but I know melding the two makes sense, at least from my point of view, certainly why I supported it. By all means, I think we got to give it a little bit of a deeper dive over time, in the sense of give it a chance to get up and running, and then we can talk in details about how it's running and how it's proceeding. And so I don't really have any questions, but what I would point out is that speaking of no questions, the problem is that office has historically been, unchallenged in a way that, you would hope it would be. So rather than putting it on the current successor of where it's going today, let's give her a full year to see where it goes, and then we can talk about it. And then, so I think it's fair to give her a chance to get up and running and balance the issues. Again, they're similar but not the same, which is probably where I'm fortunate and for us to have the opportunity to do this, combine the two. So anyway, I look forward to scrutinizing very closely your report next year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just open it up to committee for any last questions on really either of the reports. And seeing none, Ms. Carnogursky, I'm going to give you the opportunity for any closing remarks or final thoughts if you have any. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Mr. Chair and the committee. I don't have any final thoughts. I just appreciate the opportunity to talk about this and spread a little bit more awareness about each role, and I just look forward to working with the residents, and I hope to get a lot of complaints. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. It's kind of a double-edged sword, the wishing for complaints, isn't it? I mean, I would like us to have a government that doesn't produce complaints, but, you know, I think we've got a ways to go to get there. So on behalf of committee, I do want to thank you for your work and for your report and for your presentation to committee today. Thank you very much for appearing. That brings this briefing to a close and concludes the public portions of the meeting. Of course, committee, I'd like everyone to stick around for debrief. So thank you, Ms. Carnogursky, and thanks to everyone who was tuned in.